ahead, Dave. This is manager's report. Kick it off.
Oh, welcome everybody. We are reconvened on the March 10th meeting. We're in public session. Normally we're in the committee room, but it's got early voting going on, so we set up a little conversational approach here with the council staff and most importantly with the community. We are on the manager's report and we are talking about our facilities replacement and sustainability plan. We have 3 topics to talk about tonight. And Mike Baker, our deputy village manager, is our project manager on this project, and I am going to turn it over to Mike.
Thank you, Dave. This is the 3rd of 5 planned meetings that will result in the facilities replacement and sustainability plan, due to be completed in late April. The plan will answer 5 key questions related to replacement of the police station and village hall. Those questions include: 1, what will be constructed? 2, where will construction take place? When will the project take place? How much will the project cost? And how will the village pay for the project? Tonight's meeting will provide opportunity for discussion on 3 specific topics. First, discussion of the 6 options that were presented on February 18th. Second, discussion of the schedule, including public input process. And third, beginning of a discussion regarding environmental sustainability attributes of the project. For each of these topics, I'll provide a brief introduction and then turn it over to the mayor and village council for discussion and public comment on that particular topic. The first topic includes discussion of the options. These options were presented in detail on the 18th of February. A brief description of each option and the financial plan summary of all 6 that came from the February staff report has been prepared and distributed as a handout. Staff is seeking council member input on their preferred option. Mayor, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Mike. So one of the things that we're trying to start doing now is start making some decisions. They are, in order to do a project of this magnitude, we have to actually start making some choices. We have 6 options in front of us. We have to pick a favorite because we have to start working down the process that it takes to actually develop such a thing into a plan that's executed. There are several questions Mike alluded to we're going to start on tonight. At least 2 of them we're going to try and make some final decisions on. Final decisions that allow us to take next steps. The environmental question we're going to take 2 weeks to talk about because frankly it's a big deal. But now's the time for us to get super candid and lay it all out there. And just like any other subject, you'll find some agreement and some disagreement amongst the group. But now we need to start making decisions. So I'll start with this subject, or we can go around the table. You know what? Why don't we start and just go around the table so we make sure we cover everybody. Greg, let's start with you.
You want to take it topic by topic, or
Yeah,
should I just?
let's work through the 6 options first. We'll see if there's a preferred option amongst the group. Then we'll, as Mike was talking about, we'll talk about schedule, and then we'll talk about some of the environmental concerns.
Excellent.
So, take it.
My preferred option is 2A. I love the idea of partnering with District 58. It shrinks the footprint of government, gives us the opportunity for even more economic development in the village of Downers Grove, which helps drive more residents, more businesses, more tax dollars to the village of Downers Grove. I think all of those are good things. When you look at page 2 and the financial plan summary for each option, it's actually not as good as item number 5, just going with the apartment development, but that, I don't think, and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think that necessarily accounts for the fact that 58 isn't going to build their own building. I think we are their lowest cost alternative. And that is another positive because I think we're probably somewhere in the neighborhood of sharing 80 to 90% of the same taxpayers. And even though it may not show up on the line that says Village of Downers Grove, folks will not end up impacted as much on their property taxes by the village and District 58 working together. And that is an incredibly positive thing. All that said, if for whatever reason District 58 decides they're not going to come with us, we still need to build a building. The police department, the police station rather, is falling apart. This building is certainly not getting any better with age. I won't go through the litany of all the reasons why both these buildings need to go. But if we can't partner with District 58, I would prefer option 5. I'm open to talk about the other options. I think the market will tell us a lot. Whether we go out to bid and say, we want apartments, or we want townhomes, or we want an office building, I think people are going to kick the tires on other ideas. So let's put it out there, let's pick one. Let's say we want the apartments, or if there's a consensus someplace else, let's hear it. But I think we got to pick an option and move forward. The time is well past when we need to get this done. So let's do it now.
Anybody got questions? This is, one of the reasons we've moved down here to this table is to try and facilitate a little more of a conversational thing here. Now, we do need to get all of us to express our opinions so that staff has direction, but I'm hoping there'll be some conversation. Anybody, any questions for Greg or want to weigh in? If not, we'll just.
I'll weigh in since I happen to be next door and tend to agree. I mean, we talk about all the time how important it is to pair with other governmental agencies for things and have those partnerships. And I feel like it's somewhat rare that we get to do that within our own community. And so to me, it's incredibly exciting to think that we could actually do that. And so I also think that I would go with 2A. I feel like that is the second lowest average annual gap if you're looking at the financial plan summary. I'm also not opposed to option 2. And then I'm fairly open from there. You know, townhomes have been discussed, apartments have been discussed. I had been pretty adamant in the past about no more apartments because that is what we were hearing from the community at the time. However, I feel like now that we do have some of these apartments up in town and they have been successful, I feel like we've heard less and less about that since, and so I've become a little more open to it because the community seems to be more open to another apartment building. If I'm incorrect, someone please email me and correct me, but that's just what I'm hearing, and so I tend to agree with Commissioner Jose, but very open for discussion after 2A and option 2.
Okay, Kevin?
Okay. From last week, there were about 3 things that stood out in our discussions. The first was kind of an understanding that our area still has demand for additional apartment rentals. And so I think that was something that was, for me, eye-opening to know that even though we have the properties that have come online, that there is still enough of a demand to warrant something additional. So I think my preferred option would be 2A. I love the idea of the intergovernmental partnership just being thrown out as a proposal, but I'm also very much intrigued by the thought and the idea of, I tried to look into numbers, and maybe we can get these numbers going forward, but numbers that show a resident spend within the village. I think those numbers kind of put a face on how and why in option 2A for me and option 5 are my preferred, just to the idea and the thought that we can support another apartment building, and that to see that money and that economic activity happen in our area would be good.
When you say resident spend, if we could somehow get our arms around what the typical existing apartment downtown resident spends in our community?
Just
residents
for
in general.
let's make it simple. Restaurants, breakfast, lunch, dinner kind of thing. To see that and to see that kind of trail of recycled money in the area would be neat to see.
Mark?
2A. I'm thrilled with 2A. I'm thrilled with the opportunity to partner with the school district. I think that's fantastic. And I would also like to see an apartment building. I think this site deserves people. This is a transit-oriented development site. I'm not interested in an office building. I'm not really even that interested in townhomes. Previously, I had a big interest in townhomes because there was a lot of apartment buildings coming online 2 years ago, and we didn't know if these were going to fill up. They have in the 2.5 years since we've talked about this last, they have absolutely filled up, and we have room for more. And so 5 would be my second choice.
Thank you. Leslie?
All right. My preference is definitely also 2A, again, for all of the reasons echoed, to be able to partner with D58, knowing that we share the majority of our taxpayers, and to be able to kind of reduce some of those costs to taxpayers would be exciting. I honestly wavered back and forth for a while about the idea of putting something on this site or potentially leaving it as green space. I ultimately just decided, actually similar to Commissioner Earl, that this really is a transit-oriented area, and we do have a lot of demand for apartments. And so I think that this plot of land is a much better option to put residential on, knowing that maybe one day down the road, a few years down the road, that fleet garage might leave. I'm pointing to the picture. Knowing that might get moved out of there, and that would be, if we wanted a green option, quite honestly, a better both location and just from a terrain and elevation perspective would be a little bit more reasonable to put something there, knowing that we have some challenges with the creek. So I've got to say that my preferred option is 2A, and for me, if I'm going to put residential there, I'm going to go with number 5, knowing how much demand we have for apartments. I think that if it doesn't work out with D58, I think our next best option is to partner with an apartment developer.
Thank you. Rich?
Yes, I agree with my colleagues about 2A. Greg was very eloquent, and so I don't need to repeat what he said. I have also flipped over. You asked me a year ago, I was all about townhomes because I thought it would be good to have that kind of housing stock, similar to the success of Georgian Court. But about 2 or 3 weeks ago, I did speak with a private developer on another issue, and he volunteered that he would love to put townhomes in or near downtown, that there's a big market for that. I'd like the cooperation with District 58. Certainly, we should look at the total spend and the total responsibility of our taxpayers, in that compartmentalize that or partition it into village taxes and District 58 taxes related to the facilities. However, if they have a situation where they have to delay for any significant period of time, like for instance, if they feel they have to go out to referendum, I would switch over to option 5 immediately, because I believe time is of the essence. With interest rates being so low and a robust economy, I think this is the perfect time to move forward.
Thank you, Rich. I agree entirely. I'm not going to repeat everything my colleagues said. They've done a good job of describing it. I hope it makes sense, the logic that's being used. There's been a lot of thought into this for a good number of years, and most recently several months, and I think you're seeing a lot of agreement, because irrespective of where any one of us comes from, both in history about this subject or in where we live in town or what we do for a living or how long we've been paying attention, the obvious answers are rising to the top. There's no question that there's a need, and these are some really good choices on how to get it done. So I fully agree, 2A and 5. I do want to underscore Rich's comment there. We are deciding, hopefully, to build the building that we need to provide the services to the residents of Downers Grove. That is independent, ultimately, of District 58's decision. We would love for them to come with us. As Nicole said, we've got other partnerships and we love doing them, and frankly, they're the right way to serve our taxpayers, there's no question. But they have to make their choices for themselves, and there may be things that we can't anticipate that get in the way of us continuing to make progress. We need to go ahead and go. So I want to underscore that. We really hope they join us. It'd be awesome for our community. It'd be a great sharing of resources and reducing the footprint, and lots and lots of good reasons. But ultimately, we got to go forward. So 2A and 5, it seems like everybody's on board with that. How's that for direction?
That is crystal clear direction. We appreciate it. It makes our jobs quite a bit easier. Mayor, we always build in time for any public comment, but we can do it section by section, or we can move on to a scheduled discussion. Your call, sir.
You know what, that is excellent. I apologize. We should do it section by section. I don't know where these are going to go exactly. So is there anybody that would like to weigh in on these choices that are before us and the comments you've heard from us collectively? Please come on down.
I'm sorry, my name's Diane. I've lived in Downers Grove for what feels like forever now. And I personally still like option 2. I like the green space, and we can always put more green space in there. When I take the train downtown, I love going by the places that have, like ponds and trees and that sort of thing. It's really nice as a commuter to have something to look at other than these buildings that are right by the tracks. So that's part of my reasoning as well, as a commuter.
Thank you.
Andrew Peloso, Downers Grove resident. I just want to say that, first of all, I commend the village staff for persevering and for taking so much time and using our taxpayer dollars wisely to continue to move this process forward. I think that for anyone who's here, you can stare at the water coming in, you can hear the stories about the police station and the services that they provide, and that the village has waited long enough for this project. 50 years in a building that was originally a factory, a police station that at this point, given the recent sort of crime wave that's going on, makes me worry as a resident that we have adequate services available to preserve evidence, to do the things that are necessary to prosecute the laws to the fullest extent possible. And that this project has really gone from sort of a, well, let's build the Taj Mahal for Downers Grove, in my opinion, to basics. Let's serve the public well. Let's give Dave a decent office. Let's give our police staff the resources that they need to protect the community. And so I want to applaud the village staff first and foremost, and the council too, for taking on what is a controversial topic, spending money on something which is a building for public service. And I'm sure there's a lot of folks that, aren't excited about that. I would argue that there's probably a lot more folks that aren't here right now that see that bigger picture, and a private-public partnership, one that brings in the school district, one that brings in a necessary diversification of housing to this community. Not all of us are going to buy houses in the future. We're going to rent. We're going to, own townhomes. We're going to conduct the American dream in a non-traditional way. So being able to incorporate that into a village plan, which sensibly reduces the village's footprint on public lands, opens up some of that land for tax revenue, thinks about things in the future, and maintains vital village services while doing that. I mean, holy cow. I mean, come on, guys. I don't think you get to see this kind of stuff in action every day. So I'm a 2A person, 5 person all the way. But more importantly, I'm behind what the village, the elected officials, and what the staff are doing here. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else? Please, come on down.
Yeah, I'm Brad Phillips. I'd just like to say 2A seems like a really good plan. I really like the fact that we'd be saving money, potentially saving money on the school side while spending money on the village side. If you spend $1 over on this side, you save me a quarter over there, that makes me very happy. And also, I don't have kids in the school district anymore, but I recognize the importance of good schools in my town. It keeps my property values up. It keeps future doctors and nurses coming down the pipeline to take care of me. So I really would like to support our school board in this regard. One final thing I'd like to say is, it bleeds into subject 3, but if we have, the last time I was here, the presentation said we had developers coming to us looking to develop that property. If we have them coming to us, we have leverage over them. Maybe all the things that we talk about in terms of making this a green project and saving energy and stuff like that, we can look at not only the village building, but we can build that into some of the requirements for the apartment building as well. If they want to build on that site, they can be green just like us, and it can be a green project, not just a green village building and an apartment next to it. So that's something I think we could consider.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Take it, Mike.
All right.
Hang on.
I'm sorry?
Svetlana Ivić, Downers Grove, more than 20 years. I'm looking for a very different perspective from different point of view, because the beauty is something that is making a life difference. Beauty. Money are money, but we are already 27 trillions in the debt. So why to build concrete, you know? I would like to make to be their kind of, like my Americans will say, living room. With a few apartments for guests, by guests. For example, I would like to see here very famous people. The very famous people are actually very modest, very interesting, and they are caught by beauty, by unusually. This city has very special taste, so it would be nice to bring them and keep their kids and wives here. I would like to see here very famous engineer from China, and more than everything, I would like I'll keep him here. And more than everything, I would like if we can invite Mr. Peter Handke. He's a phenomenal writer from Austria. He recently got the Nobel Prize for Literature. Actually, he could get this 20 years ago, but he followed truth, you know. And I would like to see this guy here. And I would like invite him deeply from my heart to invite this Peter Handke here and allow him to talk to people and write here and keep him a long time here. So if we can attract people and keep them here, you know what? This is something that we are doing phenomenal. Not chase, not rules, not concrete, but people are making city. For example, if we can look through the money, through the profit, I'm losing here. I'm Canadian. So what keep me here? I swear, I can prove that. So what keep me here? One home warm in this city. I have used to live in Boston, in Cambridge. We have been there 2 bus stops exactly from Harvard, but we decided to turn back here. Actually, I wanted to be here. So it doesn't mean that here is perfect. Nothing is perfect. I'm not perfect. But here is one home atmosphere. This is a point. Maybe you don't see that because you are born here and raised here. But I have friends here. And this is reason that I'm here. And also I'm writer, and I get so many inspirations here. And everybody asking why you don't go to Canada. Because of love. People don't count that. But can you imagine if we have 1 month here, Peter Handke, another month, 2 engineers, 1 architect and painter. Can you imagine some sculpture? He would want to make sculpture for Downers Grove. Why not? And something else is, this would keep your kids here. If we push rules ahead, this is like a sand. The best people would disappear for this or that reason. But if here is one elastic, one, you know, you would say negotiate atmosphere, this is something very different.
Okay.
So I would like this.
Okay, thank you.
And this is the cheapest and the most beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I didn't mean to cut anybody off. Anybody else want to jump in on first side?
I don't know if this is the right time to bring this up, but there's some ideas that I had for making the instruction more efficient.
We'll come to that in 2 more. That's subject number 3 tonight.
Okay.
Bear with us.
Thank you.
Don't go anywhere.
No.
Mike?
All right. The next topic will be discussion of the schedule, including public input process. To assist with this discussion, staff prepared a one-page visual up on the screen there describing 4 possible scheduling options. This was not reproduced as a handout, but there are copies that were that were in the staff report if anyone wants to look at it right in front of them. The 4 options are depicted graphically at the top of the page, and a bullet point summary of each one appears in the bottom middle section of the page. The graphic shows a timeline extending from the second quarter of 2020 through the first quarter of 2023. Various stages of design leading up to project bidding and construction are shown in the different colored blocks. The key on the lower left-hand side indicates what each color refers to. There's a list of council actions on the lower right side that are color-coded by phase of the project. Some of these actions will only occur if the project includes a public partner, in this case, School District 58, and/or a private development partner. If the project includes both a public and private partner, as council indicated, has expressed a preference for 2A, all of these actions will come before the village council for any of the schedule options that are shown on this sheet. Of course, public input will be welcomed and encouraged for all these items that council will be taking action on. Also, each of the 4 options I'm about to describe include a neighborhood meeting and 2 meetings of the Plan Commission to consider the zoning petition related to this project. The options vary based on the amount of public input that is incorporated into the schedule during the schematic design phase, which is the first portion that's shown there in green. Option 1, the baseline option, does not build any additional public input during this phase. It does allow the council to approve the final schematic design plan prior to the design development phase beginning. Option 2, informal general public input, adds 8 weeks to the schematic design phase of the project and incorporates public input that could include design charrettes, additional neighborhood meetings, etc. Option 3, formal use of boards and commissions, adds 8 weeks to the schematic design phase of the project and includes 2 meetings of the Environmental Concerns Commission to further consider environmental attributes of the project. It also includes 2 meetings of the Architectural Design Review Board or the Plan Commission to consider issues related to exterior design and appearance of the building. Option 4 includes both the informal public input of option 2 and the formal use of boards and commissions in option 3 and adds 16 weeks to the schematic design phase of the project. Please note that only option 1 allows for the possibility of all major decisions leading up to the start of construction being acted upon by the current village council. Staff is seeking council member input on their preferred option. And Mayor, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thanks, Mike. So this is probably the one that we're going to struggle with, I'm guessing, the most. But it's really important. And sort of the fundamental question, there's 2 of them here. One is what level of public input we want to have. The other is does this council feel compelled to own every decision? Or are we willing to put some off to a future council? Those are the 2 questions. It's not just about public input. Everybody's going to sit here and say we want public input. There's no elected officials ever going to tell the audience they don't want elected input. But there are some realities. One is we have to move to take advantage of the point we are in history, both economically as well as a community and organization in terms of deciding we are going forward. The other question is, what's the risk that the village entertains by putting some decisions off to a unknown future group? And so that's what we're going to talk about tonight. There isn't a right answer. It's going to be the 7 of us figuring out what we can all live with and think is the best course. But that's sort of the question in front of us. Want to start, Greg?
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for setting the table on that. I think all of those reasons you talked about, the risk of the economy, the risk of interest rates, the risk of the election, meaning 2021, the risk of this board changing significantly. There's always 3 to 4 of us up every 2 years. And the risk of, frankly, wasting all of the work that's taken place up to now and all of the work that will take place between now and whenever it is we take a vote on constructing a new building absolutely militates in favor of option 1. We have 14 weeks here in which to take public input at 2 to 3 meetings a month. Just this body. That doesn't even include the 2 plan commission hearings, the neighborhood meeting, emails, phone calls, folks stopping you at the grocery store, when you're out to dinner, etc. I know I've experienced it. I know everyone else has. The residents of Downers Grove are not shy about giving their input. And I even left out social media because frankly I'm really bad at it. We've got 14 weeks to take that public input, and I think it will absolutely pour in. But the bottom line is that the public input we've gotten is to build these buildings, or rather this building, because we're consolidating. And I think we have to do that. I think everybody up here has been in favor of it. Obviously, we see we're reaching consensus on what it is we want to do, both in terms of partnership and in terms of developing this land. I think the time is now. I joked, well, it was really only half a joke, when we were talking about what the building would look like and you know, how much space we would need. Because staff kept talking about the space program, and I said that was apt because, frankly, we landed on the moon faster than we're building this building. We've been talking about this since 2007, give or take. The time is now, and we need to keep it in this council. We need to own this decision and live with that, and take the 14 weeks of public input that comes along with it. Thank you.
Thank you. What do you think?
Well, I think Commissioner Jose and I have been agreeing on a lot lately, which I pointed out to him, and it's incredible. Also very fun, Commissioner. You know, I really struggled with this because, to me, public input is so important, and I'm really struggling with, yes, 14 weeks sounds like an incredible amount of time, but I was also around where, you know, we hosted a coffee with the council here and had design up, and people could come and walk through and comment on, you know, on these different designs and such. And, you know, I also struggle with the fact that we do have boards and commissions that want to be more involved and more engaged. So for me, this is incredibly difficult. If you look at option 1, it is, you know, up to 14 weeks, and then it almost doubles when you hit option 2 and option 3 at 22 weeks, and then option 4, we're at 30 weeks. And, you know, again, taking advantage of interest rates and where we are in our current economic situation, you know, I think I would prefer, just for expediency, also taking into account the election, option 1. However, I am open to discussing. I'd like to hear what my colleagues have to say, because what I would hate for is for the public and our boards and commissions feel as if they're being left behind. But I also want to make sure that we meet our goal of completing this in a timely manner. So, thank you.
Kavanaugh, what do you think?
It's a tough one. I think I echo both the sentiments of the 2 previous commissioners. I am concerned about the further that you push things out, you are bringing in uncertainty and things that are outside of that control. I think what I've appreciated since we've started talking about the village facility has been the input and individuals that we have run into. I've run into, and the other council members have run into, 2 of which I see here this evening from totally different places that have discussed and talked about what we're doing and shown their appreciation and just how we're moving forward on it. I am concerned about pushing things out further than what we have here, but I have also valued the conversation specific to this issue. And so if I had to choose an option, I would have to go with, personally, I'd have to go with option 1, but that option 2 is a very close, for me, very close tie. Just wanted to bring that conversation into what we're doing next.
Well, this is probably going to be a surprise because I've been the one pushing to drag this out. But I absolutely agree that we cannot take a risk that a turnover in the council will take tank this whole project. This is the first time in probably the 15 years this has been going on that the 7 of us have agreed. And not just on the concept of having to do something, but exactly what we should be doing. And, you know, to quote previous Mayor Kelly, you know, don't let the perfect be the enemy of good, but something good has come out of every single time we've tried to do this. We've gotten something better, but I don't know how much better than this we can get. And all the stars are aligning, and all of the financials are aligning. And my only concern is that we are just not going to pick up enough input from our boards and commissions. I would stay with option 1. I would like to, any of the public meetings that we have, I would like special invitations, special reaching out to our board and commission members so they can come and participate in the audience just like the regular public folks can, but they'll be looking at it from a different perspective, and they will then have their opportunity to weigh in at the same time. I think we can maximize our efficiency if we actually ask them to come and join us in this process, and we can hear them along with the public. So that's, I would say, option 1.
Thank you. Leslie?
Yeah, I've got to say I'm probably most closely aligned with Commissioner Earl again. It feels, this one's a struggle for me because my personal preference would be 3. I think that we do a disservice when we ask people to give their time and effort and expertise and then say in the biggest project we're going to do in the next 4 decades, we're not going to use it because we're really worried about an election tanking something that which to be fair, we've been working on for weeks. I would like to have enough faith that that wouldn't happen, but we all know that, you know, we've been here before. I still struggle with saying that I have to support option 3. I would like to see us do it faster than 8 weeks and maybe not 2 meetings of each, perhaps just 1, and try and keep that time down. But I am willing to compromise with what Commissioner Earl said. If we can find a way to ensure that we are using the expertise of our boards and commissions in some of those meetings where we have a special invitation, I can manage that compromise. But again, it is important to me that when we say that we are using our boards and commissions, you know, that the role that they play is important. Again, this is the biggest project we're probably going to do in decades in this community, and I think we should use the expertise that we have.
Thank you. Rich?
Yes, I'm in favor of option 1. I've been actually very impressed with the fact that we've had now this 3rd open meeting. We're going to have 2 more meetings. Certainly the 2 meetings, if it goes before Plan Commission, will be another one. We've gotten a lot of great input, both in meetings and, oh, I see my picture there. Of my name tag. Okay, that was a little surreal. Okay, and we've gotten wonderful emails from the Downers Grove Clean Energy Task Force. We've also gotten input from Pierce Sounder Heritage Alliance, which is certainly very concerned about environmental issues and our the cultural history of our village. There's no reason that ECC members or ADRV members could not attend these meetings and have their voices heard. And I think the other really big difference here is that in most petitions, there's a frustration that comes because the public doesn't find out about them until they come before Plan Commission. And as you all know, Plan Commission almost always has one meeting. You get the packet on Thursday, you read it over the weekend, you go to the site, you discuss it on Monday, and then Monday you're making a decision. You're actually voting on it. And then it comes before this body, perhaps, I don't know, 3 weeks later, we have our first reading, we have a second reading, and the public feels that, well, we just jammed a project down their throats. Well, I think the fact that we've been meeting not only with this, but also we had the meetings during the long-range plan where we discussed facilities, and I would hope everyone that's sitting in the audience today and in the previous committee room meetings is feeling that their voices are heard. We've gotten a lot of great ideas from people, and I think that's wonderful input. And I don't want to slow it down. You know, we have too many times where we had to start this thing over again, and I think it's the time where we just take a leadership position and move this forward more expeditiously.
Thank you. I agree with everybody, all my colleagues. I share Greg's desire to move this thing fast, and I understand Marge and Leslie's interest in wanting to make sure that our community is engaged and brought along as part of the project. I really do. I do think that we should be able to do that through the normal course of our meetings. There's no time limit on our meetings. There's no content limit on our meetings. We will sit and hear. We will sit and listen. And because it's a big deal. But one of the things to remember about board and commission meetings is they're not a meeting. They are obviously a meeting, but they are staff prep, they are staff facilitation, they are minutes and recapping, and then dissemination and distribution and information to the council. And so when you start doing that, it's not just, well, just add another meeting so some folks can come talk. It's a lot more than that. That's why you see these big jumps in the timetable. There are risks to our community in going forward with this project, and so I think we should be doing everything we can to minimize those risks. And one of them is time. One of them is time financially, one of them is time politically, and we should be trying to minimize those risks as well. I'd like to see us pursue this as quickly as we can. Speaking out of both sides of my mouth, I think Marge is exactly right. Everybody that, particularly those who we normally expect to have some particular expertise, some of you I see here tonight, but need to jump in and engage every meeting, every single meeting, be here. Send us emails, as Nicole was saying earlier. We want that input. It's not that we don't want the input, it's that we're trying to balance getting this thing done and the risks that are associated with it. And there's multiple risks. So I'm in favor of option one on this thing. But I want to keep repeating that message. You're going to keep hearing it from me.
It's not about repeating things. First of all, thank you to the council for this great and clear direction. We heard that moving with due haste is important to take advantage of the situation and to reduce risk. We also heard a reiteration that public input is of utmost importance to this council. I want to remind folks that even option one, the baseline option, doubles up on the Plan Commission meetings, because we realize that we, the village, the people of Downers Grove, are the petitioner, and that in and of itself lends itself to more input. So we've already doubled the Plan Commission input even under option one. We will take that direction that we heard tonight to make sure that we invite and engage board and commission members, not just the ones that would be boards and commissions on this topic, but all of them, to participate as individuals in multiple meetings as we go through this, which are all open to the public. Also want to point out, Mike had listed or referenced the list of council actions. Please note, anybody watching and interested in participating, that the design phases of this are all approved by the village council as we go through. So schematic, design, development, and construction. In plain English, at the front end, in the middle, and near the end, with level of detail, and the council will always take public input on those designs, and each of those council decisions is a 2-meeting process.
Anyone in the audience want to address this or give us your thoughts on what you just heard from the council? Come on down, please.
Andrew Peloso, village resident. My motto on stuff like this is real simple. After 18 years of serving as a public servant in the state of Indiana, it's think deliberately, act decisively. And I support, as a citizen, option number one. Yes, it provides a much more compressed process for public input, but the clock is ticking. The financial situation in the country, the interest in the property, there's already been one attempt that kind of fizzled away because of time. And if the village is serious, the village has invested this money, then I think that the public needs to understand that. The public needs to hear about how this process is going to unfold, and they need to understand the urgency. They need to know that these are their opportunities to participate. So I support a time frame that is reasonable, that keeps it within this council's purview, but also ensures that, I agree with you, Commissioner Earl, the opportunity for everyone to participate and a level of urgency to participate. That decisions will be made, a project will move forward, and that the village is very serious about it this time. And I think with that level of gravitas, I think that you will get the level of public input that you're desiring.
Thank you.
Yeah, Brad Phillips. In my previous life, I worked a lot in trying to get things done when I was working as an influencer rather than as a director. So I understand the difficulty it entailed in getting 7 or 8 or 10 people to agree on anything. And I congratulate you for getting to that point. And I'm aware of the long and storied history of this project over the years. And I think it strains credulity to think that if we get turnover in the board at the end of the year, that those new members will not want to put their thumb on whatever project, on this project, given its size and scope. So I would look at that option 4 with great skepticism that it won't slip because of, maybe having to start over or whatever. So for that reason, as much as I like to have, input on the project, I would really support option 1. Just if we're here, we can finally get it done. Let's just get it done.
Thank you.
Vera Miller, village resident, and I guess I too appreciate the fact that everyone is kind of in agreement on the general aspects of the project, and did not want to delay this process any further, that of all the years it's gone through. I just wanted to share my concern about the Environmental Concerns Commission, which is currently inactive, wondering what the role is for that commission going forward and how you see it providing input on this and other decisions, because as it was noted, this is a major move for the village. There's a lot of folks on the Environmental Concerns Commission with a lot of expertise and passion about the topic that have volunteered to serve and contribute their time on this. And so I'm just wondering about, if the ECC isn't formally included in meetings, then how do you make sure that there's procedures in place to make sure that all their input is included and then they have opportunities to share their knowledge and expertise. I know there's at least 2 of them here tonight, but not all of them. So I just want to make sure that that there are opportunities going forward for the commission to be part of this.
So it's a good question. Environmental Concerns Commission is certainly one group. ADRB, as was mentioned, is another. But I'm looking across the audience, and there's others too, right? There's Pierce Downers Heritage Alliance. There are Clean Energy Task Force. There are groups that are important groups that help rally residents to important issues and hopefully influence us. And I guess the pretty unspecific answer is that we're going to have to work hard at soliciting and I think Andrew said, demonstrating a sense of urgency to tell people we need this input and it's what we're moving forward. It's not a real specific policy or procedure to your question, but I think I'm sure that everybody up here is trying to find ways to square the circle in terms of moving really fast and getting that input. And what we're saying is that we're going to have to work really hard at it, but we're going to prioritize getting the thing through and getting the process done to minimize that risk. I think that's what you're hearing. So it's a valid concern, and what I hope is that every time we have a meeting, we see all of you here still. Any other comments from the audience on this subject? Okay, Mike, moving on.
All right. The final topic tonight will be the beginning of a discussion regarding environmental sustainability attributes of the project. Tonight's discussion is organized around 3 open-ended questions for the council and public to answer and discuss. These questions are: 1, which environmental sustainability attributes would you like to see pursued in this project? Number 2, why? Number 3, which attribute or category of attributes is most important to you? And again, there was some information included in the staff report with some of those categories. The input provided tonight will allow staff to prepare for continued discussion of this topic on April 7th. The staff report prepared in advance of the April 7th meeting will provide more specific budgetary options and choices related to potential environmental sustainability attributes of the project. For tonight, we are seeking discussion based on the 3 questions that I just mentioned. Mayor, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you. So we're taking 2 nights to talk about this because we know that, first of all, we want to get it right. It's important. We want to make sure we get a lot of input on it. It's also such that we're trying, if you said to staff right now, prepare a list of options for the council. That's not near enough direction. That's not enough quantification for them to even do that, because the list of opportunities to make good decisions about the environment is nearly endless. So what we're trying to do tonight is have some sort of, our certain certifications important to you, our certain processes important to you, our certain systems important to you. We're trying to get a start for that conversation so that come April, our staff will be able to start to give us some boundaries on that, some ranges on that. What does that look like? Which things are important, which aren't. There may be things that are, everybody up here is saying, we absolutely have to do that. Staff needs to know that. But starting sort of from a blank slate of paper, there's frankly just an awful lot of options, and it makes it hard for staff to start to narrow it down. So we got 3 things tonight. I hope that everybody that's here that's interested in environmental concerns will take the time tonight to touch on those same 3 issues, and then keep talking to us in the interim, and make sure you're back again in April. So let's start with Greg again.
Thank you, Mayor. Excuse me. So when it comes to the categories, the first thing I'd like to say is that I'd like to see sort of the Cadillac option. I want it all. Show me what all of it means. What's the impact on the budget? So basically checking all of these boxes: stormwater, water usage, energy conservation, transportation, site improvements. Let's go. What does that mean in terms of the bottom line? In terms of ranking what's most important to me, I think when it comes to the issues we face as a village, and I've said this, I don't know how many times in the day, it's too many to count, stormwater is the universal issue that impacts everybody, or somebody that it impacts, whether it's friends, family, what have you. So I'm most interested in things like permeable pavers, green roof, rain gardens, water recapture, things of that nature. We have an opportunity to have a measurable impact on all of these things right now, and I would love to see us take advantage of those opportunities. So in terms of the others, I want to see numbers on all of them, frankly, but if I had to say which one was most important, it's everything related to water. It's stormwater, it's water recapture, etc.
Thank you. Cool.
So, when staff said that we were going to have to answer these 3 questions, I found this very difficult because it's kind of like, what's important to you? What sustainable attributes would you like to see pursued? And to me, this is not about me at all, and it's about our community. And if we do go with option 1, which we just discussed, we are going to likely get less public input than a lot of us would have liked. But I am really hoping to get public input on this particular issue because, again, this is not about me or any of us up here. It's about the community and what is best for 50,000 people that we live with and around. I don't disagree with what Commissioner Jose brought up. Stormwater, obviously, incredibly important. I was also interested in water usage and sustainable construction practices. But again, for me, I'm really hoping to hear from the community and hoping that from that feedback, in addition to what my colleagues say up here, that we can come up with, we can see the Cadillac option, as Commissioner Jose put it, and we can see some of these different levels of green, if you will, and costs associated with those. But I struggle answering any of these questions because I'd like to hear from our community. answer.
No, I didn't mean to.
Oh, that's
I wasn't
okay.
trying to interrupt you. Another thought dawned on me, and I was trying to catch the mayor's attention before we were done. The idea of certifications was brought up. I don't need to chase a decal on a building. Not interested in checking boxes on an application. What I want is measurable impact for our community's investment. And I think that has to be number one. If that wins us an award, great. But I want to know that we're building a sustainable building, and that's what matters.
And I'll just jump here, and Greg said Cadillac option, I certainly understand what that means, that's, the best of the best. In terms of sort of putting that into environmental language, we think the Cadillac option would be the combination of two things. The maximum treatment of stormwater management, like let's say 100% permeable pavers, all the other things you said for the whole site, plus what they call a carbon neutral building. That, in our conversation with our architect, is sort of the outside edge, the most you could do. And when we frame up this discussion at the next council meeting, we think, option 4 tonight, when we'll schedule, is the most. Whatever option number that is, that's the language. It'll be carbon neutral plus all of the stormwater site plan issues.
Very good.
Let's see. I think looking at the options, the one that first jumps out for me, just to have a better understanding of, as it relates to this project, energy conservation, the use of clean, renewable energy, including geothermal, solar, and wind. I think the other item that I kind of mentioned at the very start of the process, that I appreciate the village kind of taking into account, that we've heard from outside as well, has been, that's not on our list, has been this idea of more green space. And so I appreciate the fact that that was brought into the initial plans. And so, but outside of that, I think I am counting on the direction of our developer. I'm counting on the direction of the expertise that we have in the community with the individuals as well as the commissions to help us frame this conversation better. But those are two, one that kind of outside the scope and one that falls directly in.
Thank you.
There's nothing on this list that I wouldn't consider. I would consider them all, absolutely. I think the ones I'm most absolutely want, I don't see trees on here. I would really like some trees. Definitely the water usage, definitely the permeable pavers. I love the idea of a green roof. Everything I've been hearing about a green roof, I don't know that we're going to be able to afford what it's going to cost, but in the absence of a green roof, we need green space around us. With rain gardens, it would be great. Definitely low flow fixtures, toilets, maybe water recapture. We'll see or stormwater recapture. Gray water usage, it's not specifically listed on here, but that's an interesting concept to me. I don't know about geothermal, but definitely I would like to see some solar. I think the bicycle and electric vehicle stations are obvious. Definitely light pollution reduction. And if we can swing heat island reduction too, that'd be great. And I love recycled materials. So I think that's just anything we can do in material sourcing that's going to be a renewable or recyclable materials. That's fantastic. So I'm open to all of them.
Leslie?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to again agree with really most of what Commissioner Earl said. For me, I want to see something from every part on this list, and I really wouldn't be very happy with a building that did not have something from each of these 6. For me, the key is energy conservation and using renewable energy. We need a carbon neutral building. None of these fixes are going to matter if we continue to increase our fossil fuel usage. I don't want to be fatalistic, I think we are still not quite at a tipping point where there's nothing that we can do, but we need to act now. And if we are building this building now, there is absolutely no excuse for me to why we should not aim for carbon neutral or darn near as close as we can. With climate change, we will see increases in the 100-year flood events that we're getting. The village has already amended its rainfall estimates for the next year, and that's just going to continue. So no matter how much we do on stormwater management, water usage, none of that's going to make a difference if we don't take decisive action on energy conservation. So for me, that's number one. We need to look at renewable energy. My guess is that will probably be solar. I don't think we want to use wind. That would be quite an investment that probably is not realistic here. And geothermal here probably is not going to be quite as realistic as solar either. Some of the others are relatively low-hanging fruit, so things like low-flow fixtures and toilets. I would really like to see dual-flush toilets. I'm not quite sure why that's something that hasn't caught on in the U.S., but it's something that most of the rest of the world does. I'm interested in water recapture, and like Commissioner Earl mentioned, gray water systems. Things like tankless water heaters. So obviously, you need more of them, but it's more efficient to heat your water that way than continually heating your water tanks up. So I'd like to see kind of what that might look like. And there are larger commercial options for that now. A lot of hotels use that. Absolutely sustainable construction practices. We should be using as many recycled building materials as we can. I know that Mayor Barnett has commented many times about the reduce, reuse, recycle, and we feel really good about, throwing things in recycling, but we really need to be reusing what we can, so I think that's crucial. In terms of stormwater management, the ones that stick out for me for those, permeable pavers, absolutely. We've done parking lots with permeable pavement before. I don't see why we would not do that on our own building. Rain gardens are a relatively low-cost, great way to manage those, quick flooding events. And the green space and trees, as Commissioner Earl said. For me, the green roof sounds nice, but it is expensive and requires maintenance. And so for me, if we're really not able to do the Cadillac option, that would probably be the one that for me I could compromise not having. Transportation, we've gotten many requests for at least just bike racks, basic things like that. I would love to see electric vehicle charging stations, as we had a nice long discussion about today. Why not throw those in there? And then the light pollution reduction and heat island reduction would be nice if possible. But again, for me, absolute number one has got to be the energy conservation, and then we start to get into some of the water management systems.
Thank you. Rich?
Yes, once again, I also agree with my colleague's comments. If you've ever built a house, you put everything in that you can in the planning stages, then you find out how much it costs, and then some things may not make the list. Green roofs could be one of them. From what I understand, to do it well, it significantly changes the structure, because you have to have enough soil and things like that, and definitely waterproofing. So I'm definitely for solar. I think that makes sense. Thermal, I wouldn't mind looking into, but I'm not sure how deep we would have to have a ground temperature that made sense. Water usage, I think that's a no-brainer with low-flush toilets. Certainly, the dual flush is the way to go. I don't think that wind would be an option for us. Transportation, we certainly should have bicycle facilities, the electric vehicle charging stations. Regarding light pollution, the LED downward-looking lights help a lot. I would add to put shields on the south-facing, or the lights that are on the south side, to not have the impact with residents in that scenario. Sustainable construction practices, totally agree with that. Recycling is the way we can. I think passive solar is going to be a no-brainer for us. If we have a large enough, particularly south-facing facade, that will give us a lot of opportunities where, without a lot of increase in cost. Regarding trees, I think it makes sense to put evergreen-type trees on the north side to block the wind against some of the more severe north winter winds, and on the south side, the deciduous trees to provide that green space. I would like us to look into investing in some larger caliper trees, for instance, up to 7 inches. That could give us a big head start on that. I do believe in native plantings, certainly plants that would absorb water. Permeable pavers have been proven in the Downers Grove North parking lot and also on Grove Street, so I think we're in good shape on that. And I would like to make a comment about LEED certification and also other organizations. I'm much more interested that we actually get the job done and not necessarily put significant extra money to actually get the certification. I think it's much in tune to actually getting your college degree if you decide not to walk. The important thing is you've got the degree. So I don't think we should get hung up on that aspect of it.
And I agree with Rich on that point.
I do as well.
I do as well.
Some direction. Anything else, Rich, for the moment?
No, that's it.
Thank you.
Actually, I do have one more point.
Sure.
And I don't know if this in this section, but if we build this thing to last for 75 to 100 years, that will give us more time to amortize these costs. And then we're just looking at what is the life cycle of solar. I understand that with new technology, the payback period has dropped from 20 years to roughly 8 years. So I couldn't imagine not moving forward with solar.
Thank you. I'm going to pick up on Rich's very last comment. We're building a building that, if we do this the way we think we're going to do it, this is a really long-term tool for the village, like 70, 80 more years, 100 years. And so I don't have a lot of interest. I mean, I suppose at some point somebody from Judy's department could convince me otherwise. But I don't have a lot of interest in building anything that's not carbon neutral, that takes advantage of every one of our water opportunities. We're doing a couple things. One is we're building this building that we're going to have to operate for a long time. And so we can talk about materials right this moment, and we can talk about dual flush toilets if we want. But we're going to run this building for ideally 80 years or more. And so it needs to be built in such a way that we're going to be thoughtful and we've had this conversation about what's sustainable really mean. Sustainable is not anything we're doing right now. We're trying real hard to be better about everything we're doing, but it's not sustainable. I'd like us to be carbon neutral. Those toilets aren't going to last 100 years. We're going to be changing them out sometime down the road. But if we set our building design and structure up so that we're carbon neutral now, that's going to include a lot of things like natural ventilation, like paying attention to where the sun hits your rooms. There's going to be a lot of elements to that that are going to pay benefits back to our village for a long period of time, way beyond any one element that we're talking about at the moment. So I'd like to get forced out of that if need be at some point, but I don't have much interest in doing anything short of that right now. I really don't. This is too important. It's an enormous investment. And the other thing is, we're talking about, every time the village does something to some degree, we set an example about what we expect of people that come and build in our community. We have ordinances, obviously, but we have an opportunity to set an example too. We tell our residents what our priorities are. We tell those that come to our community what our priorities are. I think it's an opportunity to set examples, to lead, and to really invest in what's going to be an 80-year tool for the village to use. So I could comment on each one of these things, I suppose. I mean, I guess at the end of the day, probably that makes number 3 number 1, if you want to try to do that. But every one of these elements should be, I'd like to see every one of these elements included, and I'd like us to find a way to do that.
One thing that wasn't really touched on is the use of the available light during the day. And that seems to me to be pretty important from not just the perspective of passive solar heating, which would be great, but use that light in a way that's also beneficial for our employees, because mental health, being locked up in a little box with no windows and no ventilation and nothing you can open, I understand sometimes there's a reason for that you can't open anything, but the lack of sunlight is so detrimental and you get so much less out of your employees, and it does take a toll on the health of people who are working in the building. And we want to do the best by our employees too. And we want to make sure that they're taken care of and that this is a place for them to enjoy coming to work. And it's not, oh, I don't want to take a job there because you're going to be locked up in the basement all day and it's like a dungeon. That's not what we're going for here, and I really feel very strongly about that, that we use the available light that we do have and try to somehow infuse it through the building.
I'll speak for the rest of the staff. Yes. We forget sometimes, a lot of us have worked in this building for a long time, a lot longer than I've worked in this building. And this particular building, parts of police are incredibly dark. We appreciate this.
And we have tried using skylights in the past, and they haven't worked out so well.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's a great idea, but maybe we need just to figure out a better way to do it. So.
I'd just like to ask Mayor Barnett, we have others comment on pursuing certifications, formal certs. Any thoughts on that?
I'm zero interest. I mean, if it comes along with the results of the work we do, that it's great. I suppose we could talk about it at some point, but building performance and operations and systems are just far more important to me because I keep going back to this. We're going to run this building for so long on behalf of all our residents, many who aren't even here today. That's a driver. You can reach a level of certification and pat yourself on the back, sprain your wrist doing so, and still have 30 years from now a building that you're not that excited about operating anymore. And I'd really like to focus on that. So what we're trying to do is help our staff get to a point where they might be able to start to put some quantification to this whole discussion. So they've taken some notes. We're going to have another conversation in April, but now we certainly want to hear from the folks that are here on the same subject. Now, keep in mind that what you heard tonight was not a decision-making process, as it was a step towards that. So,
can I jump in real quick as people
Please.
come to the microphone? What that really means is, much like the schedule options that you saw tonight, that said option 2, 3, 4 look like this and add this many weeks to the process. We have enough information tonight that I think staff can generate 2 to 3, maybe 4 additional options with elements and attributes of environmental sustainability the council talked about. And we will show the council additional price ranges, cost of building, cost of development ranges. And then at the next meeting, we'll look for further direction so we can finalize not only scope of the building and the elements in the building, but also the budget and cost estimates. So that's what the mayor's talking about for those who've been following it. That is the next part. I know the council is not only environmentally minded in their approach, we saw that tonight, but also fiscally responsible. So that balance and discussion will come up in the next meeting.
with that, please, we'd love to take your input tonight on this subject. Step 1 in the process. Now, Ron.
Thank you. I'm not too well versed in the mechanics of all this. Well, you know, I built a passive solar home about 3 blocks from here, north of here, 40 years ago, when we saw that there was an urgent need to live differently. We've got a no-lawn landscape, evergreen windbreak, deciduous shade trees, water retention, wood chip paths, so we have permeability around the yard. We've increased biodiversity, and the list goes on and on and on. And I am really impressed with you guys, what you have come up with so far with all these solutions to the problems. I'm surprised, frankly, and overjoyed to see what you're doing. But I have a couple ideas that might be interesting. And the question of wind came up. Clarendon Hills along Maple Avenue, there's a school, they've got a barrel-type windmill there. That seems pretty simple. That could be easily fitted on a roof. I don't know how much that cost them, but I'll find out. And I've seen these in magazines in the past, and I've seen that one running, you know, in a mild wind. And it seemed that might be the way to go, instead of a big wah, you know. three-bladed monster. It would give the impression to people that, hey, these guys are thinking about alternatives. People going past on the train, people driving past. It might be worth doing that, so I wouldn't nix that right away. What we did at our house was use exterior window overhangs to reduce the sunlight entering the building in the summer. It's been extremely effective, but now they're obsolete because trees have grown up so far, we don't need the overhangs. And it's incredibly cool in that house in the summertime. We can get a couple of 90-degree days. And we had air conditioning put in about 15 years ago because we work outside a lot and wanted to come home to a little bit cooler environment. But on a couple of 90-degree days, we never used the air conditioner because of the trees. The trees not only act as an umbrella, they absorb the solar energy and turn it to matter through photosynthesis. It's not light energy turned to heat energy. It's light energy turned to matter. It's neutralized. And then the transpiration. A tree this big around can transpire 40 gallons of water a day. When water evaporates, it cools. So the entire environment around the houses is cooled. And then there's an ice house roof, which is a vented roof system with no fans, no electricity. It's simply convection. Very, very simple. Low technology, natural systems approach to design. And then those overhangs allow the sunlight to enter in the winter. The sun is 72 degrees in summertime at this latitude. It's 27 in the wintertime at the solstice. So the sun's lower, the sunlight enters the house. The sun's higher, it's blocked by the overhangs. Really simple. And then you mentioned, passive ventilation. Great. That's one of the reasons I'm so impressed with you guys. Interior shades. We've got honeycomb shades on the interiors, and they're foil-faced on the inside. We can drop those at night on a cold night, and our boiler never turns on overnight because we have a 10-degree setback thermostats on 3 zones. And we get up in the morning, it's a little bit chilly, no big deal. Thermostat clicks up, and it's warm again. There's very few windows. There's one window on the north, and all the closets are on the north wall, all the storages. So we get up in the morning, put our clothes on. Clothes are a little cold, shake it a few times, and you're fine. But there's no sunlight coming in the north side, so why have windows there? And that may be, maybe some windows so you can watch the trains go past, but it's really simple. Deciduous shade trees on the south, east, and west sides of the building. And I mentioned how they interact to totally cool off the building and the surrounding area. Carefully selected and placed windbreak plants along the tracks to reduce the velocity of those winds. So you're cutting down on air infiltration. And here's the best part. I mentioned this at another meeting. A sign illuminated at night at the Washington Street railroad crossing that would read, "Welcome to Downers Grove, becoming Chicago's greenest suburb." People going past on the train and go, "Hey, it looks like a place I would like to live." So, that would create a new, fresh, positive image for the village and present a goal to rally residents and provide a simple and inexpensive way to attract green businesses I mean, how could you beat that? So, 5 years I purchased the domains greenestsuburb.com, greenestsuburb.org, greenestsuburb.us, with the hope that Downers Grove or some other suburb would want to use them someday. And I'm willing to sell them to you for what I got them for. You know, I'd pay for those domains for 5 years in a row. And as Forrest Gump would say, and that's all I have to say about that.
Thank you.
Ken Lerner, speaking on behalf of Pierce Downer Heritage Alliance. I have some written comments that if you can pass those around, I appreciate it. No, I just have a few points. I wasn't going to go through all of these comments, but I just had a few points I wanted to highlight a little bit, and it sounds like I'm going to be kind of preaching to the choir from what I've heard so far. But I do want to make one comment about the schedule issue. I'm surprised that this council would not want to get input from a future, more highly paid village council. But apart from that, my first point I wanted to emphasize was taking the long view, and we've had some discussion of that already, and the mayor spoke to that. We should think of the village is going to be here for a long time, hopefully, and a structure that the village creates will be here for presumably and serving the community for a very long time. So it's appropriate to take the long view, and that affects a lot of other things in terms of how you analyze different options and things that might require some additional investment up front but have a long-term payoff. Things like permeable pavers and green roofs and installing solar panels and creating these other options that might require some additional investment now, but would have a long-term payoff. We should be thinking in terms of the long term, and we should think along those lines in terms of what will serve the village over those many decades that the community will be using that building. And I would add one other thing, which is that also taking the long view, the village should be thinking in terms of accommodating future staffing needs. I think there was some discussion earlier about what size the building should be. And we don't necessarily want to lock in the current levels. I mean, we have to plan for some appropriate level, but we should also be thinking in terms of making the building able to accommodate, since staffing has gone up and down over the years and it's kind of lower now than it was maybe 10 years ago, we should be thinking in terms of future needs in that regard as well. Second point is landscaping. We've talked a little bit about trees and how they can create a favorable microclimate around the building. Other people have spoken to that. I absolutely would agree with the things that have been said along those lines. It's a big priority for Pierce Downers Heritage Alliance, trying to increase our tree canopy, and entirely appropriate for a village that is named after a group of trees. Also in terms of using native species of trees, we can to do so offers several advantages in terms of things like disease resistance and being appropriate for this location, and also help support local wildlife. And the point about including trees and landscaping from the get-go is that then when you incorporate that into the design process from the beginning, it may offer some synergies and some long-term savings in terms of not having to rearrange things later. So if that becomes part of the design process and becomes part of the solicitation for proposals, then that can be done in the most efficient way. Long-term sustainability features, I think people have mentioned green roofs, solar panels, geothermal heating, passive solar design are all things that everyone seems to be in favor of. So I won't belabor that point, but again, all things that fit into sort of taking the long view of serving the community for a long time with this building. And I also want to make the point that sometimes looking at some of these options, people are concerned about doing something that may seem like it's experimental or untested, but we certainly have examples to work from that are local, and we have, we should certainly be looking at the information that's already been generated along the way in projects, initiatives that the Public Works Department has implemented over the last several years that have greened the village and won us many awards. The sanitary district, the building currently being planned by the township incorporates many of the features that we've talked about, and we absolutely should be thinking in terms of using that experience and the data that's been generated along the way, and we can look to other villages as well. Aurora, Villa Park, Schaumburg, Park Forest have all done projects that incorporated some of these features, and certainly we could reach out to those communities, and we'd be happy to help do that. And lastly, as has been mentioned, this is, any structure that we put up inevitably becomes a symbol of Downers Grove and reflects on what our values are. So let's make it reflect the values that we've heard about tonight. Thanks.
Thank you.
Hi again, I'm Vera Miller, and I just wanted to share kind of some consensus that we came to with the Downers Grove Clean Energy Task Force. First, I just wanted to say I'm really, really pleased by everything I just heard from the council tonight on the topic of environmental sustainability for those facilities. It's quite exciting. I think overjoyed was a good word that Ron used, to hear that all these different elements are being seriously considered is great to hear. So I have something that I also prepared, but I need to keep the copy, so I'll give it to you afterward. But so like I mentioned, the Downers Grove Clean Energy Task Force, we're a group of interested and concerned residents working to bring more clean energy to Downers Grove, focused on solar energy and other renewables, energy efficiency, and electric vehicle transportation. So you can probably guess what our priorities when it comes to the new facilities is going to be. And I feel like Mayor Burnett stole some of the points that I actually had written down here. He did that because I had just written it up before coming here. But just kidding. So we were, of course, as other people have mentioned, we're interested in a lot of the different options that are mentioned in this list from 1 through 6. I think there's valuable and important projects and elements in all of them for the facilities. But our top priorities are really for the new village facilities to incorporate renewable energy and energy conservation. Like some have mentioned, it's just a huge priority and urgent priority now. And just if we use the latest clean energy technology, it will obviously reduce energy usage, carbon emissions, operating costs, and like others have said, it would provide a really visible model of environmental sustainability that all the residents of Downers Grove can be proud of, and that could attract new families, new residents, new businesses to the town who want to be part of a green community. So just specifically, there's 4, maybe 5 elements that we would like to see the new site design include, being all of us from the task force. Installation of solar panels to meet the building's energy needs. Energy efficient building design and carbon neutral building, absolutely yes. Using sustainable construction practices. Passive solar design for heating and cooling, that's been mentioned multiple times. And other features consistent with LEED or net zero energy standards. I think those standards could potentially be used to look at, what's done at the different levels, whether or not the certification is obtained. I don't have a strong opinion about that. I also think it's important just for the action to be taken and for the emissions to be reduced or zeroed out. And I think that's the most important. I don't know if any of the other group members feel differently, but That's my opinion on that, but I think those standards can be useful and a tool in coming up with what is done with the building. Fourth, I guess, electric vehicle charging stations made available to the village and commuter parkers in the parking lot. And we're of course, all really proud of the village's Green Fleet recognition. I think it feels like the next step to build on that leadership would be to make the benefits of electric vehicles more accessible to residents as well. And finally, native tree plantings. Several folks have mentioned that already too, to reduce the heat island effect and provide natural cooling. It would making sure it doesn't conflict with areas where the solar panels are placed, of course, but having those tree plantings around the building and parking lot areas would be really important for a lot of the reasons people have already mentioned, wildlife and having the native species present on the site. So we've selected these because we believe they'll have the greatest impact and achieve long-term environmental and community benefits, reducing energy use and carbon footprint of the new building over decades of use. Kind of as Aaron was alluding to, we're going to be, this building will be used for 70, 80 or more years. So each year it'll be, if it wasn't carbon neutral, big energy use for the village, and having that be zeroed out over all those decades would be hugely significant. So also I wanted to mention that all of these attributes that we end up including can be promoted through village communications and signage at the facility, kind of as raising awareness to residents and to other people who happen to come to the village hall that these solutions are available and doable to address climate change and these other environmental challenges while saving money, while reducing use of energy and water, and et cetera. And just getting that out there and making it visible is really important. So yeah, this is just a great opportunity for Downers Grove to show its prove its strong commitment to environmental sustainability, and it will benefit all residents of our community and the future generations who live here. So thanks for considering this so seriously and looking at everything closely, and thanks for the opportunity for all of us to give input on this process.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I forgot a couple of things. You might want to look into Oberlin College in Ohio. They did an incredible job in one of the buildings on their campus there. It's beyond description. So look it up on the internet. In terms of light, natural light, you mentioned the importance of that. It's not just the light, it's the views. Now, if you're looking out a window at a parking lot, you got a lot of light, but if you're looking out at a tree, it's a whole different thing. And there's been studies done that looking at good views out of windows in hospitals enable the patients to recover much, much faster. And that's a good thing. And also, above ground water storage, stormwater storage. So say we've got a 300-gallon tank. Yesterday it filled up about 3/4 of the way with a half-inch rain. If you had a tank somewhere and people are visiting the village hall and they can see a gauge on the side and they saw that it rained an inch yesterday, they can see the quantity of water, and also you can put up signs saying you can do this stuff at home, and that benefits not only the village but everybody, because we need to really conserve our resources. Thanks.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Rick Akins. I'm a co-owner of a solar power engineering and construction firm based right here in Downers Grove. A couple weeks ago, we had the honor to host a meeting for the Green Energy Alliance or task force, so it was really nice to see all the people there. I know it's getting late, so I'll just add 4 comments to you guys, kind of talk about the state of the art right now in solar energy systems. So the first one, the question was the longevity. Somebody had brought that up. You guys have been in the building for quite a while. Currently, the state of the art is that the solar panels have a useful lifespan of about up to 40 years, and they're very, if not completely maintenance-free. Once we put those up, there really is nothing to do with them after that point. The second thing is that looking at your plan, typically, if there's a multi-story building especially, the amount of energy usage compared to the amount of available roof space means that you can't build a solar system big enough to be carbon neutral from that standpoint. But there are new techniques out now that might be of interest. So the biggest one is to do solar panels as a carport. So you can go put those right over the parking lot, more than probably triple the amount of solar panels that you can get on your site. And the other benefit is it's basically covered parking as well, which is really nice for the people coming into the building. The third thing is that the payback period currently, because of all the tax incentives and state renewable energy credits, can be down to 3 to 5 years for commercial buildings. The issue you guys have, of course, is you don't pay taxes as a municipal building. So there are people out there that offer what are called PPAs, which means that it's a private group that would own or lease out the roof space or the carport space. They would pay for the upfront installation of the solar panels, so they take it off of your list of expenses, and then they basically sell the power back to you at a discount. So you still get the benefit of being a renewable energy to supply your building, plus energy savings on that. And then the private entity can do all this because they are able to take the tax credits. So that's another option to look into. So there's a lot of schools. We did one, Grays Lake High School last year, where they went through that type of process. And the last thing is the building is not going to be done until 2023-ish. So there are ways to incorporate solar power and renewable energy into municipal, basically as a village-wide environment. It's called an aggregation program. So if there's any interest there, basically what you're doing, like if you go to a relatively famous coffee shop across the country, you'll see a little sign on there saying that that coffee shop is powered by wind, and you look on their roof, there's no windmill up there. What they're doing is they're going through an aggregation process. So what that does for someone, a village like Downers Grove, is it's an established city, so as we go through Downers, we look at half the houses and we know that they can't do solar basically because of the tree coverage, or in this case you wouldn't want to temporarily put panels on this roof because the roof, the building's coming down. But there's other buildings, commercial buildings, retail stores that the roofs might be 20 years old already. They can't handle the solar. So there's a way that companies are coming in now. We don't do it ourselves, but this is something that we've partnered up with people on, where they'll allow the entire village basically to have the option to purchase renewable energy. And there's no additional cost or anything like that. So those are the 4 things I think from state of the art currently that might be of interest to you guys.
Thank you.
Well, I'm Ken Kuchar. I've been in Downers Grove 43 years. You might be surprised, but I remember Pierce Downer walking downtown Downers when we first got here, so I've been here a long time. I can honestly say I've never been so proud to be a resident of Downers Grove. Your thoughtful deliberations tonight were, I don't know if they're overjoying, but they're wonderful. They were really, really cool. I really compliment you all on that. The one thing, I guess I would focus on number 3, energy conservation, and the only thing that hasn't been mentioned, I think, is energy storage. There's been great strides in energy storage. People talk about what are you going to do at night? Well, energy storage has zoomed up, and you can store the energy for use at night. The last thing I'll say is that tomorrow night at 7 o'clock at the Downers Grove Library, I'll be delivering a presentation on climate change. It'll be about an hour, 45 minutes or so in the Q&A, so you're all invited to that, 7 o'clock, Downers Grove Library. Thanks.
Thank you. It's better than paying for a no name man.
Brad Phillips, I mean, I've been up here many times, and I've given you written feedback already, so I'm not going to go through everything, you know, that I've already said. The main thing I want to emphasize is actually what one of the things he said too is this issue has driven me to a lot more political activism than I've done previously in my life. I did get involved in the last round of elections, but I spent a lot more time and effort and in my own money, in fact, on this issue, because it means so much to me. I'll be, long gone by the time this building gets torn down, and chances are my kids will too. I think, to your point, we're building something that's going to last a long time. I really want to see it done right. Our group has promoted, LEED certification or some other kind of a certification. There's multiple ones out there. I get the fact that you may not want to do that, and I get the fact you may not, and that's okay, at least from my personal standpoint. I won't speak for the group. But what I'm doing here is I'm trusting you guys. When I got up and spoke for option 1 on the feedback process and stuff, that was my statement of trust in this group. I've seen you guys, heard you guys talk this evening and prior to this evening. I've seen a lot of heads nodding at the appropriate times. I'm basically trusting you guys to do the right thing for this village and to build a building that we can be proud of. And if we don't, whether or not we get Ron's sign on the side of the building, which I think is actually not a bad idea, I would like to see a sign in the lobby with all those items and a check mark next to each one. I get the fact that there's going to be budget constraints and stuff, but I think so many of these are actually going to pay off in the long run. If we spend a little more up front, we're going to save money in the long run. That's stewardship for the village. And I think that a large number of those things could be on that sign in the lobby saying, this is what the village has done for you. And if we can get, as I spoke earlier, that apartment building to be part of a green project, that's an example to all apartment builders or other builders in the village that this is the kind of thing we want Downers Grove buildings to look like. So please, justify my trust in you, because I'm trusting you guys to give us something that we can all be proud of. Thanks.
Thank you. Please.
Should I keep this like other people? That's the first I thank you, all of you, for listening my English, which is not perfect, which is 6th language. But I wanted to emphasize we need a strategy to keep high-tech people here, high-tech people that existed here already from Poland, from Czechoslovakia, from China, from India, to keep them here, and because they are living country, and when they live country, prosperity is living. And actually, this segment is actually the most modest that I met in life. We can keep them with the dust from the table, and very often this a little is missing. But it's very important and crucial point is to keep them here. Keep them here and ask them exactly what I was asking my son when my son was educated here. I was asking him, what do you want? So what do those people want? Can you imagine people that are greedy, people that are very, very modest? They enjoy and point life senses to create. I want their patterns to be here in Downers Grove, to put society up in upper level. Number 1. So we need panel what those people needs. Number 1. Number 2. How to attract more of those people.
Okay.
And we don't need money for that. So we will get something from nothing. And this is very, very quiet tiptoe. Nobody is talking, nobody is writing. No news media is writing about leaving those people. When those people leave, remaining darkness. Nobody is writing about that. And now, prosperity is in China. Prosperity is in Russia. Prosperity is in India. So, where those people came from? They came from Chicago. They came from Silicon Valley. They came from Downers Grove. And they're getting offers. And I want to keep those people here. And I need this more than this building. Personally, me. You know?
The building, yeah, the building's not all about the people. That is
Okay.
tonight's subject.
More than money.
Yeah.
Let's say more than money,
Okay.
or worth of this building. Why is like that? Because when those people are here glad, when they feel like at home, okay, with the friends, when they are established here, you know what they will do? They will give you pattern. And they would be very, very happy, more happy than someone who is taking this. And this city would be more, it would be with more lights in the streets. This city would be more progressive. And how is life working? Everybody has a network. So those people are crucial to invite more people here. And such engineers, doctors of physics, believe me, they don't need 7 jacuzzis. If they have jacuzzi, they don't use. So this prosperity is in one bigger picture like a crucial point. Because without that, all our countertops from granite or quartz, even better is quartz, with 17 ceilings, from beautiful ceilings, from the beautiful lights from the ceilings, will become perfectly pointless.
Okay,
I need that.
thank you.
Okay.
Anyone else?
Thank you, Rose. I wanted to suggest that attention be given also to, I don't know if your terminology, sustainable practices for construction, covers when the time comes for whatever happens to the police station and the village hall being brought down and whatever is done with respect to the existing parking lot. I hope equal attention is given to sustainable practices in that regard as well. Secondly, I wanted to ask questions regarding scheduling in a couple of ways. One, if I don't know and didn't hear unless I missed, since I didn't come at the beginning of the meeting, to know what the impact is on decision or option 2 with respect to the school district becoming part of the project and how that would affect some of the discussion that's going on now with respect to the building and the sustainable features that you're trying to put into the building, and whether, if you're working with the school district, how that will work out in terms of coordinating with them. And then a final question concerns the scheduling and the uncertainty that exists right now because of the coronavirus, and whether or not you are thinking about at all, and if you're not, whether you should think about whether some of the things that are going on around the world, like what's happening in Italy, what's happening in individual schools or school districts or locations around the country, might have an impact here where things would, for lack of a better term, come to a slowdown or a halt, and what impact that could or may have on some of the planning that you're trying to do right now. Thank you.
Thank you, David.
I'm Robert Schultz. I've been here since about 1955. I've lived in 3 houses on the same side of the street, same block in Davis. So I know the neighborhood, and I've watched Downers change a little bit. When I was growing up, my street was a canopy. There were trees every 8 feet down and it was a gravel area, and then we had box elder bugs through, other different things. So we've lost some of the green. So I'm very encouraged that you're talking about adding the Grove back into Downers Grove. Also that you're talking about the renewable energy. There's a lot that's being done in areas like Australia, and it was brought up about the storage. Well, we have storage. People are driving around in storage systems. Our cars now with the batteries, and there's many different storage capabilities. But going in this direction where we're putting in solar is a good idea, and the idea that we're charging stations, having the ability, it's a chicken and egg thing, and we need to be a leader. We have been a leader with the recycling program. My wife and I did the electronics recycling when we had it done for a number of years. We've done the extravaganzas. She's an environmental chemist, and so that our village is taking, I've always been very proud of that. I worked at Argonne for a while, and so that we are a very shining beacon, in this area. A lot happened because of this town. I mean, Montgomery Ward, Marshall Fields, they brought the railroad down here to, go out to their golf course. We were a resort town. We had a mineral spring here. All kinds of exciting things here. So that we're doing something positive by going with this energy. I know it has challenges, money is an issue, but if you look long term, if you're penny wise and pound foolish, if we're looking ahead, what we do now will save us in the long run. And I'm just very encouraged by many of our people here are talking about the different projects and thinking about trying to work with nature rather than fighting against it. If we work with it, it will help us out. If we work against this, it will be to our detriment. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Feel like you got some direction?
Yes, very successful meeting from the staff perspective. We will get to work, and we will talk about environmental a little bit more in the next meeting.
Thank you all for not only coming, but for sticking it out and taking the time to express yourselves. Please continue to do so. Do it, at the next meeting and every meeting thereafter, but don't hesitate, as Greg said, whether you're running into us or emailing us anything. We want your input. Please keep it coming and stay in tune and stay in touch with this process. No. I'm kidding, David. Go
How much
ahead.
of this kind of discussion and whatever email exchanges that is taking place is getting collated and will be available for perusal on the website as part of the capturing of the history?
I don't know the answer to that, but it's a good question that we'll probably have to talk a little bit more about.
We post not only the staff reports, but also the recorded video of each meeting. So that information is available on our facility sustainability replacement plan page.
Emails are or not?
Oh, emails, no. There's video, the recording of this meeting, so everything that was discussed during the conversation will be archived on the website.
I guess part of why I ask is to help people who are not as attentive as some of the people here to catch up as expeditiously as possible. I didn't know if that was part of what is incorporated into what you're doing in managing the process going forward to solicit public input in the way.
So generally, yes, just the comment about emails being posted, no, but generally, yes, the concept of trying to make sure we have an archive, a library, access to resources that tells the whole story so people can join the process in progress. That is the intent of that webpage that Mike mentioned.
Okay. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So